Okay, this is now the 5-minute tarot for the 27th of November 2017. And today I want to look at a couple of cards going backwards again through the major trumps. And normally when I do this, I've kind of got an idea of how the things fit together, but I'm not sure about today. It may end up that I give you random isolated ideas and opinions that you can then accept or reject or agree with or disagree with. But normally I would have a point to make, but I'm not sure if I've got one today. But anyway, so I'm looking at we start with the Hermit, and then we look at the card before that, and I'm saying that the number 8 is Justice, not the Strength card, and I discussed that a few days ago. And so I'm going to look at the Hermit, say something about it, and then in order to be the Hermit, or to do justice to the Hermit card, we have to go back to the Justice card. Okay. The reason that I'm thinking about this may be random ideas is because I looked up the meaning of the word hermit, and the origin is from a Greek word, I forget what it is, ereme, and it originally means a person of the desert. So if the hermit is originally, or the idea of the hermit is a person of the desert, when we look at the rider deck, we're maybe on a mountaintop, but there's snow around, and we don't really normally associate snow with the desert. But it can be that the word hermit, meaning person of the desert and separate, even though there can be tribes of people living in the desert, it doesn't mean that if you're in the desert, you're automatically on your own. But somehow it's pointing out that you're in an area that's barren. I mean, you can have an oasis here and there, but generally the hermit is an individual in a situation where there maybe isn't much growth, or periods of growth are few and far between, like an oasis here and then 20 miles away you've got another one. That kind of idea. So I'm telling you this so that when the hermit comes up, you can maybe remind yourself that we're dealing with a person of the desert, even though it looks like somebody on top of a mountain if we're using the rider deck. But it can be that there isn't much vegetation, there isn't much going on, there isn't much growth or life around the hermit himself or herself. And I may come back to that. Again, I've got a few cards to go, so I may find that when we're talking about the Emperor, we come back to something about the Hermit card. So let's say the Emperor, the Hermit it tells us about maybe how to be alone, like what we should do, or how to make the most out of times when we're on our own, and how to be alone so that we're not lonely. Maybe is what we would. I'm thinking of one card or one idea for the particular card we're looking at. So let's say with the Hermit, we want to know how do we be alone? How can we be alone? And so we go back to the Justice card, and Justice, obviously, because it's justice, and you get the justice system, and you've got the courts, you've got laws. So maybe if you're going to make the most of being on your own, you need to know what the rules are. Maybe you've been in a situation and then you find yourself separate from it. But in order to make sense of what you've been going through, you need to understand what the rules were that you were involved with, and what the rules and laws can, let's say we're being loose and we're saying they're the same thing. So the Hermit needs to know the rules of the particular game that he was involved in, or needs to know what the rules are or what the rules were, so that he can understand what to do. So maybe with the Justice card, with the Hermit, it's going to be important to know what are the rules that people are playing by. So let's say you've got a question about a business situation. What are the rules? Maybe you've got somebody who's in charge and who expects to be obeyed. Right, so the rule is that the head of the company gives orders and everybody else obeys, and that's the rule. You've got to work with that rule. It may be unjust, it may be unfair, it may be stupid because the person in charge may not know really what they're doing, but that doesn't matter. The rule is the person in charge gets to give orders to the people down below. So you have to work with what the rules are, even if you don't like them, or even if you're not happy about them, or even if they could be improved or better. Because one of the things about the law is, and laws, is that it's not always a case of 1 + 1 is 2, because there's always room for extenuating circumstances, right? There's an old thing about if you steal a loaf of bread to feed your starving family, should you be punished? And so the fact that you were doing it, you were committing the theft so that you could feed starving children, does that not in some way excuse your behavior and mean that, okay, technically the law is you can't steal bread, but in this case, it's okay, or we can let you off with it? And those are the extenuating circumstances. So maybe with the hermit, it's going to be important, not just that you know the rules, but that you actually get extra detail or extra information and data so that you can understand if this is an exception, or how to handle a situation where it's not just a simple case of black and white, but there are shades of grey. So it's as if the hermit has to interpret the rules. So if you're going to be a good hermit, or if you're going to make the most of the situation that the hermit offers you, then you need to think things through. You need to judge, and you need to weigh the evidence, or you weigh points in favour and against. And maybe that's the point, that the hermit, it's important for the hermit to see both sides of the situation, or any situation. And maybe the hermit reversed means that you're only seeing what you want to see, or you're only looking at one side. You're only seeing the good and ignoring the bad, or you're only seeing the bad and ignoring the good. So it can be with the hermit that you're supposed to see both sides, and then once you've looked at both sides and weighed the evidence and the strength for and against, then you come to a decision. So that's kind of part of it. But then I was thinking about, if the hermit is telling us how to be alone, maybe if we look at the picture of the justice card, we've got the balance, the scales, but they're evenly balanced. They could have been tilted one way or the other, but they're not. They're even. They're balanced. They're horizontal. So maybe what you do is, if you find yourself on your own, as we do, all of us from time to time, what are we going to do? And if we go back one step to the justice card, when we're on our own, the first thing to do is to be at peace, to find balance. Because a lot of times when you're on your own, you go over things that went wrong, or things that went bad, or things you wish you'd done, or you beat yourself up, because people have a habit of beating themselves up and expecting too much. And that can be going back to the hermit. So if you expect a lot of yourself, you also have to look to the other side and be very forgiving of yourself. So if you're going to be, you need both sides. You need to be double-sided. So if you find yourself on your own and you want to be alone but not lonely, don't find peace and balance. Don't go over past problems and past upsets and dwell on things that went wrong. Yes, you can consider them, but maybe from the balance being horizontal, what you do is, when you're on your own and you've got a problem, or you're worried, or you're anxious, maybe, and you have to isolate yourself for a bit, first thing to do is find peace. Start from peace and go from a peaceful state of mind. So find a peaceful state of mind, a happy place, some people talk about. And then once you're tranquil, once you're at peace, then you can consider what went wrong. But if you're on your own and you start with what's wrong, it's not going to work. It's going to make it worse. So if you're on your own and you've got a problem or a difficulty, first find peace. Then you can safely assess what went wrong and what to do about it. But if you begin your examination of the situation already upset or jangled nerves or out of balance with yourself, it's going to go badly. And maybe that's the point about the hermit following on from justice. That for the hermit, in order to be a good hermit and a sensible leader, because some people talk about holding the lamp, is that the hermit is leading other people and showing them the way. But the hermit is also leading himself or herself. So if you're going to be a leader to yourself as well as to other people, first you need to find balance and peace. And once you've got peace and tranquility, then you will make good decisions and you'll come up with ideas. But if you start off jagged, it's never going to work. Okay, that was it for today. I'm not sure what I think of that, but we'll see what happens next time when we probably look at justice and the card before, which is the Chariot. Everybody's favourite, the Chariot. It's quite a hard card. Okay, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you in a day or so. Okay, bye-bye.